Ocilla, Georgia is a town of a few thousand people, just under 200 miles south of Atlanta. But in 2005, this tiny town was shook by a tragedy and a mystery. Let's talk about Tara Grinstead, who hasn't been seen or heard from in over 15 years. Tara Faye Grinstead was born on November 14, 1974. Any source you find on this case will show Tara as happy, popular, and beautiful, both inside and out. Her friend Maria Woods Harbor said Tara had a big smile and could say anything to help you feel better if you were down. And Tara used this to her advantage, competing in beauty pageants from a young age. After graduating from Irwin County High School, Tara used the prize money she'd saved up from these pageants to pay for college. By 2005, 30-year-old Tara was teaching 11th grade history at her old high school, where she also served as the junior varsity cheerleading coach. She was in the process of applying to a doctoral program, hoping to study business administration and eventually become a school principal. She even filled in as assistant principal at Irwin County High from time to time. The night of October 22, 2005 was a busy one for Tara. After helping out with makeup for a local beauty pageant, she traveled to a barbecue where a friend later said nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Tara left the barbecue around 11 p.m. That was the last sighting of her. Tara failed to show up for church the next morning, which was unusual for her. When she also failed to show up for work the morning after that, without calling to notify anyone, her coworkers knew something was wrong. They contacted the police. When police arrived at Tara's Ocilla home, they found somewhat of an unusual scene. Her house was locked, but her car was unlocked and the seats had been adjusted. Her cat and dog were both inside, unfed, along with the clothes she'd worn Saturday night, but her purse, keys, and the earrings she'd last been seen in were gone. Her alarm clock had fallen off the nightstand and a lamp was broken, but there wasn't much else out of place or indicating a struggle. Well, except for one thing, a single latex glove on the front lawn. It didn't take long for Ocilla police to realize they needed some extra help, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, or GBI, was contacted around 11 that morning. GBI agent Gary Rothwell soon arrived on the scene, and he initially believed Tara had left on her own. However, when he saw the latex glove, he started to think otherwise. The latex glove was tested, and Tara's DNA was found on it, along with the DNA of an unknown male. Investigators compared the DNA of 150 men to the DNA on the glove, but there were no matches. Teams with cadaver dogs and divers searched the area, but also found nothing. A tip line and website were soon set up by volunteers, and hundreds of tips about the case came in. A $200,000 reward was set up. $100,000 for information leading to Tara's safe return, and another $100,000 for information leading to the arrest of the person responsible. But none of this generated any solid leads. And along with Tara's mysterious disappearance came plenty of speculation. People wondered if she had been killed, taken her own life, was abducted, being held hostage somewhere, or left voluntarily. At one point, GBI agents met with detectives in Florida to investigate the theory that Tara's case was connected to Jennifer Kessie's. Jennifer Kessie disappeared from Orlando in 2006, and her case is pretty well known in true crime circles. However, despite being two young women from neighboring states who both seemingly vanished from their homes, investigators ultimately concluded their cases probably weren't connected. Another subject of speculation was a married police officer whose business card was found in Tara's home. Heath Dykes was a Grinstead family friend who lived in a nearby town. He apparently tried to visit Tara's home on the night of the 23rd, but when he knocked on the door and didn't get an answer, left the card under her door. A friend of Tara's said in a Dateline interview that Tara and Heath Dykes were close, but it's not clear if they were romantically involved. The GBI has since cleared him of any involvement in the case. But one man who does claim to have been romantically involved with Tara is Anthony Vickers. He was a former student of Tara's who claims they had a sexual relationship. He was arrested at one point for harassing her, but those charges were later dropped. He was interviewed, but nothing really came out of it. There have also been rumors of Tara having affairs with other former students. According to one of her colleagues, she never became romantically involved with them until after they had graduated. But maybe one of the most questioned people in this case, at least by the public, is Marcus Harper. Tara and Marcus met through a mutual friend in 1998 and soon started dating. Throughout their relationship, Marcus told Tara that he wasn't interested in a marriage, ever. By October 2004, Tara, who seemingly wanted more of a commitment, called the relationship off after almost 6 years of dating. The two did remain friendly. According to Marcus, he never tried to get back together with Tara, but he said she wanted to. The last time he claimed to see Tara was on the morning of October 14th, when she should have been at work. She was clearly upset and even reportedly said to him that she would take her own life if she found out he was dating someone else. She came back later that afternoon and said she wanted to hug him for the last time. After that, they emailed back and forth but never saw each other again in person. Tara's sister, Anita Gaddis, was suspicious of Marcus from the start. He was questioned by police, who also used luminol in his truck and swabbed him for DNA. However, he was out all night and throughout the early morning hours of October 22nd and 23rd. This alibi was corroborated by the people he was with. There were also rumors that he was physically abusive to Tara. He has denied this, and there's really no solid evidence of it. In 2009, a then anonymous YouTube user began posting videos. He called himself the Catch Me Killer and claimed to have killed 16 people. He said he had information on Jennifer Kessie's case and that he had killed a beauty queen, who he never mentioned by name, but who it was obvious it was Tara Grinstead because of the rest of his description of her. However, this all turned out to be a hoax. The man, named Andrew Scott Haley, was later convicted of making false statements and tampering with evidence. In 2010, Tara was declared legally dead at her father's request. In 2015, someone called in a tip to the GBI that said there might be evidence in a pond in Fitzgerald, less than 10 miles north of Ocilla. Investigators searched the pond and announced they had found items but didn't specify what they were. In 2016, Atlanta filmmaker Payne Lindsay wanted to make a documentary on an unsolved missing persons case. When he found out about Tara Grinstead, he was intrigued. After posting about the case on a web sleuth thread, he was able to get in touch with Dr. Maurice Godwin, a private investigator who had worked on the case. The planned documentary ended up being a podcast called Up and Vanished, which released its first episode on August 7, 2016. Because the case was still considered an open investigation, Payne Lindsay wasn't able to access any documents or files. He began by trying to talk to people in the area, but they were reluctant to share anything. After he began talking to people who knew her but weren't close to her, and after the podcast started airing, people were more willing to open up. Just 6 months after its launch, the podcast had garnered over 30 million downloads. It was later turned into a TV show of the same name, which focuses on unsolved missing persons cases. And the year after the podcast began airing, there was a major break in the case. It's not clear just how much of a role Up and Vanish played in what happens next. The GBI claimed the media in general played a big role. Other sources suggest that the person in question came forward out of guilt eating at her. Either way, on February 23, 2017, the GBI announced that someone had come forward with a tip a few days earlier. Brooke Sheridan told them that her boyfriend, Bo Dukes, had helped his friend Ryan Duke hide Tara's body after Ryan had killed her. Ryan Duke was arrested that day. On April 12th, he was indicted on 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, burglary, aggravated assault, and concealing a death. According to arrest warrants, Ryan broke into Tara's house and killed her with his hands. Then he removed her body from the house. DNA testing on the latex glove found in Tara's front yard also matched him. In a 4-hour recorded confession that would later be leaked online, Ryan told the GBI he broke into Tara's house looking for drug money, but she caught him and he accidentally attacked and killed her. A few hours later, he called her house from a payphone. When she didn't answer, he went back to the house, took her body out of it, wrapped it in a blanket, and asked his friend Bo Dukes for help. The two put her body in Bo's truck and took it to a pecan farm owned by Bo's uncle, where they spent at least 2 days burning it. The pecan farm Bo and Ryan claimed to have burned Tara's body on was also searched in February 2017. According to the Charlie Project, a few bone and tooth fragments were found there, but none were big enough to test for DNA. On March 3, 2017, Bo Dukes turned himself in. Anita Gaddis actually knew Bo's family, but never imagined he was involved in her sister's disappearance. He was released on bond later that day. On June 18th, he was indicted on charges of concealing a death, tampering with evidence, and hindering apprehension of a criminal. And his friend Ryan wasn't the only one who had already talked. As it turned out, a few months before all of this, a man named Garland Lott had been interviewed by the GBI. Lott claimed he overheard Ryan and Bo drunkenly confess to Tara's murder back in 2005. Janice Paulk, who was Lott's boss as well as Tara's neighbor and founder of FindTara.com, was also interviewed. Paulk said she talked to the GBI in 2008, but nobody followed up with her until 2017. A man named John McCullough also claimed to overhear Ryan and Bo confess. McCullough, who met Bo Dukes in the Army in 2006, said Bo told me that his friend accidentally strangled her and he needed help getting rid of the body, so that way there was nothing to find. McCullough said he called the Ocilla Police Department and 2 other police departments before reaching out to the GBI. He kept reaching out to them periodically over the years, but says he never heard back. Bo Dukes already had a criminal history. Around 2013, he spent time in prison for stealing $150,000 from the U.S. Army. In January 2019, he was arrested for a New Year's Day incident where he allegedly held 2 women hostage and raped at least one of them. I couldn't find information on a trial, acquittal, conviction, or any other sort of legal matters involving these charges. I assume he's awaiting trial, but I'm not really sure. He did go on trial on March 18, 2019, on charges of concealing a body, hindering the apprehension of a criminal, and lying to police, the latter of which he'd been charged with later in 2017. John McCullough testified about Bo's 2006 confession, where he said Ryan asked him, Bo, if he could use his truck to dispose of Tara's body. At the trial, GBI agent Gary Rothwell addressed all the reported confessions and tips that seemingly went unnoticed for over a decade. He said the GBI thought these tips had been addressed by local law enforcement, but he said that they still should have followed up on them. On March 21st, 2019, Bo Dukes was convicted on all charges. The next day, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison, the maximum he could have gotten. He remains in prison today. As of April 2021, Ryan Duke is still awaiting trial. It was initially scheduled to begin in April 2019, but it's been delayed multiple times, partially because of the pandemic, but largely because of various legal battles. He has since rescinded his confession and now claims he was at home asleep during the time frame in which Tara disappeared. Ryan's lawyers say he was on drugs when he confessed and that they don't think he can get a fair trial in Ocilla. But Ryan doesn't claim to have no knowledge of Tara's disappearance. According to his new statement, Bo Dukes and a man named Ben McMahon were also at his house that night but left at some point. Ryan said he falsely confessed because he was afraid of Bo Dukes. I assume here that he's trying to throw both these men under the bus and say they were actually responsible for Tara's disappearance. In May 2019, Ryan's lawyers filed an appeal saying the state should pay for expert witnesses in the trial. This request went all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court, where after at least one denial, the request was finally granted on March 15, 2021. And that's the latest update in this case as of April 27th, 2021. I thought about delaying this video until the trial was over, but it hasn't even started yet and it's not clear when it will. It could literally be years. So I will keep you guys updated if and when there are any more major breakthroughs. Tara Grinstead was 30 years old when she disappeared on October 22nd, 2005. The Charlie Project says she is classified as endangered missing. Tara is a white female who is 5 foot 3 inches tall and 100 to 110 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She has brown hair and eyes and a tan birthmark on the front of one of her shoulders. Her ears and belly button are pierced, and she might have last been wearing sweatpants and gray sneakers. If she were alive today, she would be 46 years old. So that is the case of Tara Grinstead. This is one of those cases where we know what probably happened, but there's just not solid proof of it. Hopefully one day there will be, and of course I will let you know when there is some sort of verdict in Ryan Duke's upcoming trial. If you found this video interesting or informative, I would love it if you would hit that like button and share it with your friends. For more missing persons cases, cold cases, and other general dark content, I hope you'll consider subscribing and hitting that bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.